Good afternoon. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Hey, Marcus, it's great to have you on. Everyone, it's a treat. We got Mr. Marcus Canady. Uh, he is a good friend of mine. We've had many conversations in the last few weeks, just talking about general things, life, and it's kind of the purpose of us to here today is really getting you to tell your story, who you are, where you're from, and then just talk about what you got going on, and then we'll get into your book, that Intrusive Leadership, second edition. I had the opportunity to listen to it. I've got some questions for you, and I think it was amazing. Very good book, excellent. Leading into kind of who you are, shaping that story. So just go ahead, hit us with your story. Tell us who you are, where you're from, and how did you get to where you are today, and then what brought you here. You know.
Yeah, sounds good. Well, first of all, Rod, thank you for this opportunity. Thank you for doing what you do, allowing people to tell their story, right? Shedding some light on some people that, might not have that typical light shine on them and tell their story. So, one, appreciate this opportunity to do just that. So, who am I? Um, I went to high school in Savannah, Georgia. Graduated Herschel V. Jenkins right off of Duran Avenue, right there in Savannah, Georgia, class of '96, home of the Warriors. Class is coming up on our 30-year high school reunion. I'm gonna tell you, my hamstrings tensed up as soon as I said that too, by the way. Um, but right after high school, I ended up going to the Coast Guard Academy and then graduated in 2000 and ended up doing a full career over 26 years in the United States Coast Guard as a helicopter pilot. So I was an MH-65 helicopter pilot, very fortunate to conduct life-saving missions during Hurricane Katrina on the high seas, as well as law enforcement. So I often tell people, if you remember Bad Boys 2, and you remember when the Coast Guard helicopters came in and shot out the drug boats?
Yeah.
Well, we do that for real. But we don't do that in, the intercoastal waterways of Miami. We do that, in the drug traffic zone. But it's a very exhilarating, definitely a personally satisfying mission that I was very fortunate enough to be in. So military veteran, and just, happy to be here.
Man, that's awesome. That is awesome. So, like, how did you? All right, Savannah, Georgia, to Coast Guard Academy. Herschel I'm gonna mess that one up, but Herschel P. Johnson High School. I know I probably tore it up, but how did you like? What brought that even into your radar to go from where you were, Savannah, Georgia, to even like Coast Guard Academy on the radar? Talk me through that. Like, how did that happen?
Yeah. So my father was in the Coast Guard.
Okay.
Now he enlisted, ended up becoming a chief, ended up becoming a warrant officer. He was in the Coast Guard. But very interesting. Um, I never really thought about going into the Coast Guard myself. Even though my dad was in the military, my dad didn't bring the military home,
Oh,
right?
okay.
I wasn't one of those kids that was walking around acting like G.I. Joe military kid, because my father was in. But it was the summer before my senior year. My father said that you are going to go to this week-long college visit at the Coast Guard Academy
Okay.
just to see what it is. And there's actually a powerful story behind this. He wanted to expose me to the opportunity of the Coast Guard Academy and the Coast Guard, get all the information I needed to be able to make the best decision for me. So he didn't force me to apply to the Coast Guard Academy. He didn't force me to go. He forced me to actually do something that was going to give me some insight into this opportunity and then allow me to make the decision.
You don't
So
know what
I
you don't
ended
know.
up going to this. I end up going to this. It's called the Academy Introduction Mission Program 1 week prior to my senior year. And it was there that I really It was like a week-long college visit. That's the best way to put it.
Okay.
But it really introduced me to the academy, and it really introduced me to the Coast Guard in a larger sense, because once again, my dad didn't bring the Coast Guard home. So
Right.
after that experience and how much fun I had,
Okay.
it was on my radar. So then when I ended up graduating in high school, you know, I was going to college. The question of whether I was going to college was already there. My parents placed that expectation on me very early. My mom is an educator. She ended up being an elementary school teacher. So going to college was something that I was going to do. My older sister went to Florida A&M University. Shout outs to HBCUs. So it wasn't a question of if I was going to college, it was a question of where.
Okay.
The thing that I liked about the Coast Guard Academy was, 1, it was free. 2, I had an automatic job when I graduated,
Yes.
and I felt like if I enjoyed the Coast Guard, I would already be doing something that could be a career that I just saw my father do and take care of a family. So I said, "Hey, free education, guaranteed job, a potential long career as a result." I applied, I got accepted, and I decided to go.
Man, that's awesome. That's awesome. I it, that's amazing from the perspective of you weren't forced into it. You were just exposed to it. And that's the thing that always stands out cuz if I tell you to go do something, you have to do the opposite. As you know, especially as a young high school age young man, young woman, you will and it's like, "Oh, okay, I'll show you." But as soon as you give them the opportunity to think for themselves and say, "Hey, I'm not telling you you have to go here, but you do have to go see it. You have to go experience it, and then you could this is one opportunity of many, just so you
Yeah,
know what's going on." And I like that, the idea of, look, it's a free education, you guaranteed a job at the end, and, if you choose to serve, you can. So that's
yeah.
amazing. What brought you
One
down the path to being a pilot too? That's a big deal. I mean, that's a big deal.
Yeah, and so, that's an interesting story too, but I wanted to circle back on something because I do think that this is important. My parents did a number of things for me that I know that I am where I am today because of what my parents did for me, right? But 2 things is expectations and exposure.
Yeah.
They placed a high level of expectation on me and my sister to be excellent. So for me, I was going to be successful. I was driven to be successful. The question was just simply, how was I going to be successful? And what area I was going to be successful in, right? So high expectations is something that I think that I will always be grateful for that my parents placed on us because I now place high expectations on myself, right? And I'm trying my best to mimic that now that I'm a father as well.
Abs absolutely.
Exposure is the next thing. You know, very fortunate enough to be moved around a lot when I was a kid, right? Because my dad was in the military. So the idea of being in Savannah, Georgia, graduating Herschel V. Jenkins, and going to Connecticut, that wasn't a huge thing because I had already lived in Hawaii. I had already lived in California. I had already lived in Ohio, right? And so I was exposed to traveling, you know, the United States.
Right,
So going to Connecticut was just up the street. It just happened to be I-95, right?
right.
And so I think that setting expectations on people is important and then exposing them to all the many things that they could do and then let them choose what they want to have fun doing. Now that leads me to being a pilot. very interesting. Played football when I was at the academy for 2 years.
Okay.
One of the company officers, so one of the leaders, right, at the Coast Guard Academy, he saw me in the hallways one day. He was like, "Hey, where you going?" And I said, "Oh, I'm about to go work out." He said, "Hey, go and take this aviation test." And I said, "All right, well, I'm not really thinking about aviation." But he said, "Hey, don't worry about it. Just go take the test, right? And we can talk about it later." Simple aviation battery test, right? And took the test, did fine, passed it. But then he started talking to me about aviation. And once again, he exposed me to aviation. Now, mind you, at this point, I had never flown an aircraft. I had never even thought about being a pilot. But I started thinking about, if I'm in the Coast Guard, what would I have fun doing? And when I started thinking about the Coast Guard and I started thinking about what would I have fun doing, and then I started thinking about, they're going to teach me how to fly. I don't know anybody that's flying. Why don't I try it? Right. And so that ended up being the thing where it's like, hey, exposed to it. And then, part of the academy, the military thing, they're going to end up exposing you to different career fields as well. Um, but I end up deciding that serving as a Coast Guard helicopter pilot was something that was going to be fun. And I was just going to happen to get paid doing it.
Absolutely.
And so that is what ended up having me go to flight school. And I literally showed up to flight school in Pensacola, Florida, the summer of 2002 with 0 flight hours, just smiling, energetic, with high expectations to perform.
Absolutely. Just
And
happy to
here
be
we
here.
go.
Hey man, I love that. I love that. I it seems like it's a pattern, that exposure, which I think we'll get more into. So academy, flight school, get down there, do that. I mean, you know, that's that's awesome. It kind of, to be honest with you, that pattern seems like it leads into your book, right? Intrusive leadership. People taking that time, going in and caring is kind of the antithesis of your story is what it really boiled down to, is what my takeaway. I I I had the opportunity to get the audio book. I listened to it prior to our conversation today. And man, I'm gonna be honest with you. Initially the title was off-putting because as a Marine, um, I was in from 99 to 2025. And there was a period in Marine Corps when it was like intrusive leadership. We need to get back in the barracks. We need to get back in there and know our Marines. But it wasn't genuine. It felt disingenuous. And I was an officer at that time already when that happened. You're right. I was a young lieutenant, captain. Um, so I was a company grade officer, and I'm out there, walking the lines, doing my thing. I was a company commander at the time. I remember this vividly, being in Iwakuni, Japan, and it was like, hey, intrusive leadership. We need to be in there. We need to know their liberty plans. We're going to fill out this form to ask questions, and we're going to really take interest in the Marines. But it felt like at that time it was a cover your ass, CYA, to make sure that if, Lance Corporal Jones or Johnson or Smith or whomever does something dumb over the weekend, you can say, hey, sir, I got this piece of paper. He signed it. He said he was going to go from this place to this place with these people, and he was going to have no more than 2 drinks, and he wasn't going to do anything stupid, because and I get it, because of there was a lot going on, right? It was Marines United in that at that time, which was a big scandal. There was, lots of sexual assaults happening, whether it be in the barracks or out in town. And then we were overseas on top of that. That added another layer of complexity to it. So like for a young man or woman to go out on a weekend, Friday, Saturday night, and go from Iwakuni, a 45 minute to an hour train ride up to Hiroshima to go to the bar, to go to the club, or go to the movies and do cultural experience. Whatever they chose to do, they had to have a plan, had to have a Liberty Buddy, and it was very different. And it was an extra lens on these young men and women who were just trying to figure their lives out. They didn't have the benefit of, hey, I'm in college, I can make these mistakes. Some of these mistakes that they'd make, even if it was just, hey, I had one too many beers, I'm underage, and in college you don't have that level of pressure, but in the military you do. And it was off-putting for me, but I understood the why. But trying to help the Marines understand that why was very difficult, and it was just one of those things. So like initially I was like, oh man, intrusive leadership, what is he talking about? What is the story? But the way you talked about it, the way you characterized it, I appreciate the way you even defended the name of your type, the leadership style in the book, in the way you discussed it, because you talk to so many people with these interviews. Man, I love it. Let's dive in. Tell me, talk to me, because
Yeah.
it's awesome.
So the name, yes, I understand exactly how the name of it, how it might make people feel, right? Uh, it's funny because I don't talk about this often, but there's a number of words that might do that, right? So we're, middle-aged men, you know what I mean? I'm just gonna say we're both above 30.
I appreciate you.
If I say colonoscopy, you see your face,
It is different. It is different.
right? How important is it,
Extremely. And it's something we don't want to talk about, but you need it.
right?
Absolutely.
It's important, it's needed. We don't talk about it, but you could have something going on with you that could actually be life changing, life ending. And if you don't end up taking this colonoscopy, a medical procedure that is going to be very intrusive into you, then these things might not ever be discovered. And then you can't get the help that you need that could potentially save your life. And we don't actually talk about it as much as we should because of how people feel about the term colonoscopy.
You know what?
So
You're right.
the term is off putting, but it is necessary, it is critical, and it could be the difference between someone being here or not. Now, I don't go around and telling people, hey, Rod, I want to schedule you for an intrusive leadership session next week. You know, let's put that in there, right?
Put this on books.
Right. If I'm talking to you, I'm not going to say, hey, I'm about to get intrusive with you, right? I just do it. But when you think about the actions that leaders need to take in order to build true, authentic, trusting relationships with the people that they are leading, those words, those actions, I agree with Simon Sinek when we had this conversation that there isn't a better term to describe the actions that create that sort of relationship than be intrusive. Now, here's an example. You don't know me. And if I come up to you and say, hey, Rod, how things at home with your wife? You're going to be like, hey, where you coming from with that?
Right.
Right.
Fair.
But your best friend, your boy, someone that has already built a trusting relationship with you, asks you the same question, are you going to have the same response?
No, different conversation.
That is the difference. It's the same question, but because a leader has taken a time to actually build and earn your trust, show you that they care about all of you, not just the part of you that shows up in the office as an employee. When that leader is intrusive, a little bit invasive, a little meddlesome, you know it's coming from a place of care, right?
Yeah.
Now, let's say you actually do have something going on. If a stranger says, "Hey, how are you really doing?" You're going to say, "I'm fine." Stop asking. But once again, if your boy says, "Hey, man, how are you really doing?" You might actually give the real answer,
Different conversation.
right? And so I kept using the term, and I will continue to use the term. Obviously, it's the title of the book because one, leaders need to understand that real leadership is going to put you in some uncomfortable places. And so I'm not going to make this leadership style comfortable for you by giving it some cute, cuddly name. You need to understand exactly what it is. And when people know where you're coming from and they know that it's from a place of care, they're perfectly fine with it. And I will tell you, after going around and talking about it, there are people that are begging for intrusive leadership.
Yeah. Uh, and that was the takeaway I got when I was reading your book, to be honest with you. Like I told you, the name was off-putting because of my experience, and everybody has their own experience with it, with leadership, with life, and others. So there are things that put people off. I mean, hell, we'll jump down the hole of DEI in a minute as well, because you talked about, man, you had some very interesting conversations, and you pieced them together so well in your book, and how you described it, because there are a lot of topics people don't want to talk about, like kind of to the point. Intrusive leadership is like a colonoscopy for a man over a certain age. A it's the conversation that you have with men about prostate cancer that we don't talk about, because that's something. I mean, I'm passionate about it because we have family members that have been through it, and how if you catch it early enough, you can make a difference. Just like intrusive leadership, right? You catch it early, you may be able to save someone's life. You may be able to change someone's life. You may be able to direct them down that trajectory or path and help them avoid those pitfalls or transgressions or things that could really impact them in a way that we don't even know, because of where we touched them at the right time. We engaged at the right moment. We made a difference when it counted. And that's the piece, that I think is so valuable, um, to your book. I mean, it is something that you know, even the conversation you had with Simon Sinek when you were talking about it, and he basically was like, "Can we give it another name? Can we do something else with it?" When y'all had those conversations, you were like, you stood your ground. You were passionate enough about it to have the dialogue, and like, "Hey, I'll break it down to you why I call it this, because it's not going to be easy, because developing those personal, close knit personal relationships with someone takes time, effort, energy." I mean, I was remembering the Excel spreadsheet that you talked about with the, hey, these are the engagements, these are the people, these are important dates, these are birthdays, kids, boom. That way of managing and organizing it, if you may not have it committed to memory for, that 100-man team you may be in charge of, or thousands, or how many ever people, leaders are, it's something that doesn't come natural to some, it's something that comes natural to others. And that's one of those things. It's somewhat, to be honest, it's a playbook of how to get out there and truly show the care and that concern for someone who, you normally wouldn't engage with, or normally wouldn't engage with others in that manner. So I
Yeah.
appreciate it. It's needed.
Yeah.
It's
100%. You know, I want the people that I'm in position to be their leader. When I'm blessed to be in that position, I don't want them to think that there is any part of them that I don't care about. I don't want them to think that there's anything that they are going through that I'm not willing to talk about or listen to, right? I want them to bring everything. Yes, I'm a helicopter pilot. We're at an air station, but you're having a problem with your daughter. We can talk about that because if that's impacting you, then as your leader, I care about that.
Absolutely.
Right? You're trying to work through any sort of family issue, any sort of personal issue. You have a passion that is actually something that's going to take you out of the organization. You don't have to hide that from me. Hey, let's see how we can make that dream happen. Let's see how what positions I can put you in that you can live out that dream, right? Now, as we do this while you're here, I still need to do your job, right?
Correct.
But I don't want you to hide what your passion is because you think that I wouldn't support you. And I just think that if leaders look at approaching their people in that manner, that 100% care for the whole person, just think about how much better work relationships would be. Because you talked about the fact that the Marine Corps, went through an issue with sexual harassment, and the military in general did. My service, the Coast Guard, we just recently had one. Um, and I remember talking to a senior leader, and I just remember telling the senior leader that it does not matter what process you come up with to handle these cases. If people don't trust the person that they have to report to, it's not going to work. So you can come with all the legal stuff that you want. It is not going to have an impact if you don't have leaders that are able to build trusting relationships with their folks, that they're going to feel comfortable saying, this happened to me.
Absolutely.
And so if we're not addressing that, then we're not really addressing the problem, right? And so that's why, I'm really big on this. Um and I'm really passionate about it. And so that's why I continue to talk about it.
No, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. Tell me about, there's a part in your book where you go down the road of when you were in school going through, was it the Eisenhower School, if I'm not mistaken, or which one was it?
National War College.
National War College. So you were doing National War College. There was a lot
Yeah.
going on during that time. Kinda tell me the story about that, 'cause you hit a lot of good things in that piece, and I'd rather you tell it than me try to re-explain it.
Yeah. So, you know, um, it kind of goes back to everything that happened the summer of 2020, the George Floyd, the Ahmaud Arbery, the Breonna Taylor, those situations, right? Which really kind of started this journey on intrusive leadership, right? Cliff Notes version, I was personally struggling with what I was seeing playing out on the streets of America, right? African American man in the military at the time, serving, but questioning how people saw me,
Yeah.
questioning if my life mattered. Um, I'm a person that believes that all lives matter. I show people that no matter who they are, their life matters. But in that moment, I needed someone to recognize that I needed to hear that my life as an African American mattered.
Yeah.
And I didn't get that. And a lot of people didn't get that. And so that ended up starting the journey on intrusive leadership. And it ended up having me research and think about some things. And so I ended up finishing my time up in Houston, Texas. Crazy enough, I literally lived right around the corner from where George Floyd ended up being buried, right?
Okay.
And so it hit close to home. And so there was just a lot of things that were on my heart at that time, and then I ended up coming into, the National War College, taking this phenomenal program. I met some amazing people, but I was still going through something, trying to really just questioning race relations in the country.
Yeah.
You know, when I drove from Texas to DC, I made my way to see the Emmett Till Memorial, to see where they pulled him out of the river, to see the sign that still has bullet holes in it. Um, I went and saw the 16th Street Baptist Church in Birmingham that was bombed. Um, was reading some books, right? Cast, The New Jim Crow, um, and Robert E. Lee and Me by Ty Sidgley. Great book.
Hmm.
Going through some things. I end up um, doing a research paper on intrusive leadership. And that's when I actually started looking at intrusive leadership in more of an academic sense. Is this a good thing? Let's get all the insights, right? Let's just do a research paper um, and see what this is about. And but what was very interesting was at that time around some of my students, they were intrusive with me when they would recognize that, you're not as talkative in class today. What's going on? You um, Colin Powell passed away while I was doing my research. One of the people that I wanted to interview,
Yeah.
he's a graduate of the National War College. You know, I'm feeling like the response to this icon no longer being here was a little less than adequate.
Lackluster.
What's going on? He's a graduate. We actually have a library that is a Colin Powell library right here at the school. What are we doing? Right? Um, the situation that happened in Buffalo at the grocery store where um a man walked into the grocery store with the intent of just killing as many African Americans as he could.
Yeah.
That happened, right? Um, so many things happened. And there was just a moment where I was given an opportunity to really just start saying, hey, we gotta start having some conversations and talking about these things. We just can't act like these world things aren't impacting people. And what was interesting was the situation that happened. I want to say it was Kabul, the airport,
Mm.
where they end up a couple of service members ended up dying. There was a terrorist attack
Yeah.
as we were pulling out of Afghanistan,
Yeah.
right?
My friend was there.
Mm. Rob, we showed up to the schoolhouse that Monday, everybody into the room and into the auditorium. And there was a recognition that because we were service members, and a lot of these service members knew people that had served over in Afghanistan. They had served in Afghanistan. This situation was going to hit close to home.
Oh, wow.
We needed to pause on the job and pay some attention to people's emotions. So we were directed to go into the seminar room and allow people to talk about their feelings to make sure that support was given.
Hmm.
And I said to myself, that is exactly what we should do. However, there wasn't a recognition when Buffalo happened, right? And when I was talking to one of the administrators about it, I had to explain to him, and he just so happened to be an aviator. I explained to him the same way we feel when an aviation crew is lost because we understand what that crew was doing. We have a connection because we're in that community. And even if we don't know the crew, we feel some sort of way. It hits us close to home. I said, "You don't think that that situation in Buffalo didn't hit close to home? You don't think that when they showed pictures of the victims that I didn't see my aunts? I didn't see my cousins? When I know that the reason why they're no longer here was because of their race and we're on the same race, right?" And that was a moment where there was a recognition that, oh, and so through all of that, there was a moment where they allowed us to start having some of these conversations. And some of the students started talking to each other. I remember, a couple of students just brought me in and asked me, and we started sharing, why do you feel this way? People started to want to know and learn about different perspectives.
That's deep.
And it started there and it just the journey and that's what a lot of this is about. No matter what your position is on an issue, I want to know and understand your perspective. But at the end of the day, I want to make sure you know that I care about you, that your life matters to me. And I'm not afraid to say that to you.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's deep. Um, that's deep. From the perspective all around, right? You said so many things in this last few minutes that were legitimate. George Floyd, um, when he was murdered, we're at work. I'm at First Marine Corps Aircraft Wing, First Marine Aircraft Wing in Okinawa, Japan. Um, one of the Master Gunnery Sergeants, E9 in the Marine Corps, food service, he knew him personally. They went to high school together.
Wow.
Now, mind you, no one in the room knows this.
Mm.
And he was having a rough go at it, of course, because he was his friend. Um, and people, everybody's giving their opinion. Oh, well, watching the news, Monday morning quarterbacking. And it's like, look, man, in my opinion, X. In my opinion, Y. He should have done what you, boop, boop. But nobody took a moment to say, Master Guns is a little off. I talked to him about it a little bit later. The next day, he wasn't in the work. He left work early and didn't come in for like a day or so. And I talked to him about it, and he was like, "Hey, man," it was like, "Hey, sir." I was like, "Nah, it ain't no sir and all that. Hey, what's going on?" I was like, "Hey, listen, I went to school with him. I knew him personally. He was my friend. Um, and it messed me up. It was like, regardless of what the story is, what the track record, history, it shouldn't have happened." And we never actually, he and I talked, we connected on that level. But I don't recall any point at work us taking a pause, a knee, and actually having a conversation, any leadership. And at that time, at that moment, it's all senior people at the staff level. So, I'm one of the less senior people as a major, but it was just one of those things that I think a lot of folks did not ignore, but I think just didn't pay attention to, and it is something that shouldn't be commonplace. And there's impactful things that happen all over the world. There's an earthquake in the Philippines. Everybody's talking about it, and everybody's pulling people in. Hey, is your family good? Is this, is that? But we're not talking about those those interesting moments in different communities and places and people and things. I guess it's because it's so, I don't know. I think it's the hard conversation, that intrusiveness.
It's a hard conversation, but also we do have to give people some grace. One, thinking this way is not part of leadership development.
Okay.
Thinking that a situation is happening outside the workplace and you need to think about how this situation that's happening outside the workplace might be impacting people different inside the workplace. That's not a thing that I think is taught in leadership courses.
Fair.
That's why this needs to be taught. Because, in my opinion, this situation, not just the George Floyd, but the whole situation, because I will tell you the Christian Cooper situation that happened in Central Park, I think impacted me more than all of those situations, right? Out of the four, George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, the Christian Cooper situation. I think the Cooper situation impacted me the most. But there was a lot of racial tension
Mm.
that was happening in the country. Leaders should have taken a second to say, hey, we can't let this tension that is happening in the streets impact what's happening in the office.
Yeah.
Because there's a potential that somebody that's working with us might think that we don't actually value them.
Yeah.
So we need to make sure, right?
Yeah.
So, case in point, um, the Israel, Iran, the Israel Hamas situation. There's a lot of anti-Muslim rhetoric that's going on in this country. Some rhetoric that's actually happening from senior people in leadership positions.
Yeah.
Right? I remember texting somebody that worked with me to say, "Hey, I I know that you're Muslim, and I'm hearing a lot of things that aren't really pleasing to me about the Muslim faith right now. I can only imagine what conversations you might be having at home right now. I'm just checking in on you. How you doing?"
Yeah.
This person was like, "I've never had a colleague or a person in leadership position in my entire life that asked me that question. Why not?"
Yeah.
I mean, think about the conversations after 9/11.
Yeah.
We had Muslim people that were serving
Yeah.
in the military. People of the Muslim faith in all walks of in all career fields, corporations, and all of that. Did we also put our arms around them?
Probably not, to be fair. Probably not.
Asian hate, the COVID situation, Asian hate came up. What's that about?
Yeah.
You know, any situation. Charlie Kirk.
Yeah.
Did the Charlie Kirk situation, his assassination, did that have a potential of causing some division in the workplace?
Right.
Let's talk about it.
Right.
Where we at with it,
Right.
right?
People.
Because once again, I don't want anything, I don't want anything to happen that might give someone the idea that I don't see them as a whole person and not be willing to address it head on or not trying to seek some understanding about it. Right.
Right.
And so once again, I just think that this is a reason why, and I will tell you, one of the reasons why I am so big on the fact of intrusive leadership being trained and developed in leaders is because even though I felt like I led this way because I just care about people, after studying it, after researching it, I realized how much better I could be doing.
Hmm.
I actually started picking up on different ways where I could be even more intentional and connected. I've really started to pay attention to who have I not built a relationship with? Who have I not actually extended a hand and connect with, right? How am I developing my leadership skills so that I can end up being the best leader for everyone,
Mhm.
right? I was in a workplace and happened to um, be going through a human resources situation, and one of the people that was working on the team is transgender.
Mm.
Hey, do you mind if we have lunch? Yeah, sure. We sat down and had lunch. Hey, I've never had to be a leader for someone that is transgender, someone that is going through the same human experience you're going through. And if I'm ever in that position, I want to show up for them as their leader the same way I show up for anybody else. So I need you to help me understand someone that is going through the same life situation that you're going through. What are some things that I need to think about and know about as their leader? Help me be a better leader for you or someone that might be in your same shoes. Now, my position or my opinion on transgender does not matter at all.
Facts.
That wasn't part of the conversation because that does not matter. The only thing that matters is that if this person is on my team, I want to be the best leader for them. How do I do that?
Takes a lot of hubris, to be honest with you. And there's a lot of people that can't get out of the way of they can't get themselves out of the way of self to focus on somebody else. And that's you hit the nail on the head when you said that's something that needs to be taught because it's not natural for everybody, right? Like I ask people how they're doing and genuinely ask and have the conversation with them because that's just how I am and who I am. You know, I don't want anything from you. I don't want anything from you besides to know that you're okay, you're good. Is everything fine? Hey, let me help or advise or ask questions just to say, are you good? And that's those kinds of conversations I'm accustomed to having. But I know there's a lot of people who would, kind of you hit it in the back at the end of your book saying, which was awesome as well, because it was very obvious that you took the time, effort, and energy to really put the level of thought and rigor into it to say, hey, as a leader, you're not going to get everybody to open up and allow you in. And you have to be okay with that. But that doesn't mean you don't have to. That doesn't preclude you from having to at least try. You still need to
100%.
try, but you can't get mad and say, "Hey, Rod, how you doing? How's the family? How's everything? We're good. Everything's good. Everything." And that's all you may get. But that doesn't stop you from at least trying. Because you know what? That day that they may actually need you as that leader, they may come to you and say, "Hey, you know what? I'm really struggling right now. I'm going through it. The family's this, or my mom just that, or we're in X, Y, or Z. It's very impactful for people to see that you just genuinely care, and that
Yeah.
that's a legitimate point. And I can only imagine how that impacted that person that you worked with, that you were leading, when you said, "Let's have lunch." And you actually opened up that conversation and talked through that. Tell me about that. Like if whatever you can share about it, just like how did that go? How did that work?
The conversation was eye opening. And I think that that individual, well, one, she was, you know, he was very appreciative in the approach that I took.
Okay.
The and the desire to just simply want to be a better leader for, that community, someone that would be in that community or in that position, right? And obviously gave gave me a lot of grace and not the expectation that, "Oh, you should know," and well, which is that is some of it too, right?
Right.
But, you know, it was very eye-opening, for me. It just gave me some insight into things that I need to think about.
Mhm.
Um, and and now I'm not saying that, "Hey, I got it perfect now."
Yeah.
I got a little better. But also you know, I took a chance and read the book, All Women Rise, or How Women Rise. Great book. Read a book, Big Asian Energy. As you can tell, I'm not Asian. I'm not a woman, but it's the same mindset. These are books that discuss barriers that women face in the workplace or that people from the Asian community face in the workplace. If I want to be the best leader for everyone, then I need to understand what those barriers are. I need to make sure that I'm not one of those barriers. I need to have some insight into their perspective. It is being intentional on being the best leader for everyone, right? And then there's also some humility and understanding that there's always something that I can learn. There's always something that I can do better. So I need to be willing to sharpen that leadership sword, right?
Absolutely.
Um, and talk to people and say, hey, what are some things that I could be doing better? Right. And listening
Yes.
and then acting upon it, right? But you hit something on the head when you talked about you have to be okay that someone might not get to the point where they trust you. And I tell people all the time, one of the reasons why intrusive leadership has to be taught is that leaders have to understand you can't kick the door down. People have to open the door. When it comes to their personal life, people have to open the door. You have to knock, but you have to earn the right that they feel comfortable opening the door and letting you in. Now, how long it takes, that's for them to decide,
Absolutely.
right? You also have to understand that, hey, Susan has an issue, but Rod has a better relationship with Susan than I do. But I'm Susan's boss.
Ooh, ooh.
Well, I don't need to be so arrogant in my leadership style that I'm like, Susan has to bring her issues to me. No, what matters is that Susan's issues are being addressed. Hey, Rod, I feel like Susan's having an issue, and I feel like you have a better relationship with her. I need you to check in and let me know if from the leadership aspect if there's anything I could be doing to better support Susan. But I just want to make sure she's good. Leaders need to understand it's about the individual getting what they need, not that individual getting what they need from them. And I think there's a lot of people in leadership positions that's like, hey, you're supposed to bring those issues to me.
Mine. Like, no, no, no. It it's all about the person you're serving. We are serving.
100%. Humility, you know, serving, all these things come together. But once again, I know you've been through some leadership courses. Where is that actually taught?
It's not.
And that is a problem. That is why this intrusive leadership and the way that the Canady leadership group talks about leadership, that's why it has to be a part of training because people have to understand it is about them.
Yeah.
It is about the individual,
Yeah.
not you getting the credit. They might not ever even know. I've had situations where I have helped someone and they had no idea, and it's okay because it's about them.
Yeah. It, as people, right? I think we
Mhm.
have this issue, especially as a leader. I've noticed that as a leader, you think you just get it right. All of a sudden, especially military leadership. It's like, hey, I have these shiny things on my collar, on the middle of my chest, on my shoulder boards, whatever you want to call them, and it's like, or my sleeves, whatever it is, and it's like, I was taught how to deal with this. Actually, you weren't. Actually, you weren't. I I've seen a few things, I had a few experiences, and it is eye-opening how much we just don't know. It's
Oh,
eye-opening and eye-watering how different approaches can be used to impact people's lives, and just caring about people
yeah.
makes a difference, right? One of the stories in the book was, who was it? Senior ch no, who was the one that the suicide story kind of I would the leader that was like, "Hey, I take care of people, I do my thing, I take care of everyone." And he was like, "I think I might have been diagnosed with something. I don't know yet, but I have a plan, and I'm gonna I made the logical decision so I don't have to be a burden on my family and friends to do this." And because of the way he was so involved in his people's lives, they were like, "Hey, sir, something ain't right. What's going on? We're not leaving until you tell us that you're good or what's going on because we care about you." And, I love it's love. It's all leading with love is one of those things, right? And it's one of those parts, the aspect I love, the mother in love. Like hey man, that had my heart jumping. I tell me that story and then talk about the mother in love piece. Like that is so quintessential to who you are in that story and just those dynamics. Please, please.
So I would tell you that story is by far one of the best examples of how intrusive leadership can help with suicide prevention. Um, and I think a lot of times, really what it showed me is a lot of times people in leadership positions, people that are in charge of an organization, they want to create a family type of environment,
Okay.
but yet they do not show or develop leaders that can build that, right? Once again, I'm trained to fly a helicopter in response to a hurricane, in response to a tropical storm. The organization, the Coast Guard, has spent millions training people to do the mission, spent very little to recognize when someone is going through a personal storm. I just started thinking about executive presence.
Okay.
Companies across the world spend millions of dollars training their people on executive presence because it's important for leaders to understand how they present themselves to the people in the company, how they are viewed. So they spend millions of dollars making sure executive presence, they're trained, yet they're not training them on how to make their people feel seen. It takes both. And that's the side that we're not touching on. We're not touching on that aspect. So this story, um, it's very touching. This senior enlisted leader in the Coast Guard, he led this way. Just this is just naturally who he is, and unfortunately, it came from some instances of toxic leadership and him just deciding to be a lot different,
Yeah.
right? And he ended up, um, he ended up becoming an intrusive leader because of toxic leadership and wanting to do the exact opposite. So he was over the top and making sure that the people that worked for him felt cared for, felt valued, supported. And so he was working in an area in the unit. He was the person in charge, and he looked at his folks like his children.
Okay.
And so he was like, "Yo, you going through anything? I'm here for you." Right. Well, as you mentioned, he started going through something. And this is where that family atmosphere comes in because his team, his subordinates, the people that work for him, they recognized that there was a change in him
Yeah.
and they wanted their old chief back, right? They wanted the person that they were used to having around. They needed that. So they went to him to say, "Hey, what's going on? You're not yourself, and we need that person." And so he was at a moment where he had planned on, because of some situations, he had planned on taking his life. Because, like you said, he didn't want to be a burden on others. And what's very scary is that people that are really going to do it, they don't talk about it. That is what's really scary when it comes to this issue. But because of this family atmosphere, his subordinates, the people that work for him, recognize the change in their family member. And they went to their family member and said, "What's going on?" And that led to a conversation. It led to him rethinking his plan, deciding not to do it. And unfortunately, the situation passed and he's good. He's here today. And just amazing. It was, once again, it to this day, it it's the best example um that really highlights how this leadership style, intrusive leadership, how impactful it can be in building the type of workplace environment where people feel psychologically safe, everyone feels supported, everyone feels valued, and people's mental health is taken into account. So these are a lot of things that people want the results from leadership, but they don't teach how you get the results.
The work.
This is what intrusive leadership is.
I have a story. If you'll entertain me for a moment on this one, because it, it is a hard one, right? Um, you hear about people in the unit, suicides, all this other good stuff, or bad stuff, to be fair. Um, to say it plainly, I as a young captain, I had a Marine that committed suicide that worked for me. You know, barring whatever was going on in his life, don't know the whole story. He and I talked all the time. We had a good relationship, good rapport. He was a sergeant, E5, Sergeant Andrew Munn from Walton, New York. Just a good young man, good kid. He'll come in my office, tell me his adventures for the weekend, and kind of swap stories with me, just telling me about the silliness he would get into, or things he would do, or how his family was doing, and on a regular basis. He was single, no kids, never been married, probably 25, 26 years old. Big in the stock market, had tons of free time and that little extra money. Um, got blown up a couple times in Afghanistan, in, you know, in his up armored vehicle. And that was at the time, right when hey, you could get a Purple Heart for TBI, because if you've been rattled a couple times, you probably actually have some stuff going on, even though there's no you got all 10 fingers and toes and still can hold the conversation. Um, so he and I talked about those things, and it was like, "Yeah, sir, I think Imma actually do it. I'll go ahead and put it in and, go for it. Get the Purple Heart for that, or at least submit for it and let the chips fall where they may." I was like, "Okay, cool." So, long story long, he comes in my office one day. I don't know anything that's going on. Um, he had I guess seen his name on the legal report accidentally at a friend of his desk is this is the story I gather. Name on the legal report being, in some type of something going on. Don't know what it is. I don't know if he knew what was going on. And he was roommates with his buddy who was a legal clerk. And he, you know, work related, we were doing the GCSS Marine Corps cutover. So basically like the supply system. I'm a logistics guy. We were doing the cutover for the supply system, and he was supposed to be shipping out the system on a schedule to train the people on the system. So we had the training team and did cutover. So my training team was going out. He was supposed to ship the equipment out. I think he missed the shipment or whatever it was, missed the cutoff for the day. It was like, hey, I got in, I was like, hey, what WTF, devil, X, Y, and Z, chewed him up a little bit. So I man, get out of my office. Boom. And I was like, we spoke. I think that was our last interaction. Me chewing his ass over something menial that wasn't that big of a deal. It was important, but it wasn't that important. So I may have missed the sign. I don't know. It's about midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning. I get a phone call from my boss. He's gone. What is going on? It's, uh, Adam uh, killed himself last night. I was like, you're kidding me, right? I kind of just let it process, ended up hanging up the phone, got into work the next day, kind of figuring out what's going on. And I started getting the tidbits of the story. And it was so like, we don't know what people are going through. We don't know how they're doing, what's really going on, and what they'll really share. And, even in the moments where we think we have it all figured out, we may not. And that's that hubris aspect. And those conversations are important. And when that happened, that changed my whole view on how we treat people, how we talk to people, how we discuss things. Because as a Marine, it's knife hand, yelling, not yelling per se, especially as a leader, like as an officer, yeah, we don't need to yell, but you still need to get your point across. You need to be direct. You need to be firm. You need to be organized and succinct with your communication. But knowing that or not knowing if something I could have said could have made a difference sits with me to this day because of the relationship we had. I had the honor to be able to take him home as the escort detail to get him home, bring him back, meet his family, talk to his mother, and meet his brother, who was eerily resemblant of him. His older brother was also a sergeant in the Marine Corps, and they looked identical. It
Mm.
shook me to the core when I saw that. Um, and it was just so impactful. And it just sits with me like, is there something I could have done? Is there something more I could have said, more I could have asked? Is there something that I could have done that could have changed the trajectory of this man's life? Because whatever it was that ended up causing him to go down this road, what could I have done better as a leader? Because I felt responsible, personally responsible, because he was mine. He was my Marine. I was responsible for him. I felt like I had to carry that weight, and I still do. Um,
Mm.
I'm still in touch with his family to this day, and this was
Yeah.
2011. So
Yeah.
it's and I guess we don't understand, not we, people in general don't understand those dynamics and aspects and impacts and how different it could make. uh, someone's life just by caring. You know what I mean?
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, one, you, and I'm pretty sure you've heard this before, but you do got to forgive yourself. You got to give yourself some grace, right?
Absolutely.
Um, I always say that as much as I think that this can impact intrusive leadership can impact the issues that we're having surrounding suicide, it's never going to eliminate.
1000%.
It's just an unfortunate reality, right? Um, we can just really we really just need to try to, as much as we can, bring it as close to zero as we possibly can, right? And just always have that in the back of your mind, spidey sense. Like, hey, is this the situation? Is this a potential? This is one of the things where I talk about teaching this is that I became a lot more in tune into situations that could potentially lead to suicide after hearing these stories where when I was, you know, 10, 15 years into my job as a leader, I didn't have that perspective. So, looking at a situation, it'd be like, oh, I would never think that that person would do that. And so that is why one of the things that I really started to focus on later on is when I know people are going through a difficult time, whether they're being investigated, they think their career is about to end, they got passed over. I intentionally seek those people out
Yes.
because a lot of times they're in isolation.
Yes.
I remember I remember there was a, young kid in the office and he ended up getting a DUI. And we all know that that's career impacting.
Yes.
The potential of that is very career impacting. And I just remember I was busy doing something. I was on the way to a meeting, and I remember walking towards the elevator, and I saw him, and he's looking, and he looked at me. And this is the first time me seeing him after he got arrested, and he knows that I know,
Ooh.
right? And it was like immediately I walked to him and I said, "Hey, we gonna talk some more about that situation, but you're gonna be okay, and I'm gonna be with you every step of the way. We we gonna go through this, but you're gonna get out on the other end. And I stood next to you last week. I'm gonna stand next to you the next week." And I walked to my meeting, but I could tell that in that moment, he just needed someone when he is at his lowest to just give him that sense, right? We still gonna hold you accountable,
Correct.
right? We're gonna hold you accountable, but I'm not gonna isolate you,
Correct.
right? Not in this moment,
Correct.
because this could be a moment that someone says, this situation is too much.
Correct.
So that's another, like you mentioned, just we get in the habit, especially in the military, like leaders, hey, this is what we do, and I do think that there's times that you have to show emotion, right, as a leader, because that's a human thing, right? But I really try my best that when it is with a single individual, I really try to refrain from the yelling and just being really, I'm stern, right? And I'm gonna hold you accountable. But I really do think about, hey, I'm not trying to make you just feel bad. I'm trying to get you to recognize your mistake.
Correct.
And I think that there's a difference. But and I sound like a broken record, but where are leaders trained on holding people accountable with care?
I did in my time, I didn't see any PMEs or schools. Very rarely did they talk about that aspect of it. They talked about legal. They talked about the process. They talked about UCMJ. They talked about accountability and how to hold people accountable, how to put paperwork in place, how to fix or correct actions, but they never actually talked about how to genuinely lead from that perspective, how to genuinely take care of the issue, how to genuinely fix a problem. Hey, not everybody that joins the military gets to stay in and do over over a couple days to a year to 4 years, 10 years, 20, 30, 40 years. Not everyone is blessed and lucky enough to do it. Some people have to come in and leave shortly thereafter because they aren't fit for service. But we don't have to write them off as though they are a broken used car. They're not a 1976 Pinto that just broke down the side of the road. You don't need to leave them. You can help them through the process. If they don't want your help, they push and fight all the way, spitting and kicking. Guess what? You still have the obligation to help them. And once they're gone, then you can cut ties because you don't have to be friends at the end. But you have to say, from my perspective, I had to look myself in the mirror and say, did I do everything I could to take care of my Marine, my sailor, my soldier, my airman? Did I take care of my people and put them in a position to be successful? Did I do my part? And that's kind of like that's what you've been talking about.
100%. Because we teach the knife hand, but we don't teach knife hand, then this hand is gonna give you a
Yes,
like
absolutely.
that's not how we teach it.
No.
But it's exactly how it's supposed to. And the thing is that people do not understand how much people can still gravitate towards people that hold them accountable. Think about this. Athlete, right? Your favorite coach.
Wasn't the one that was nice to me.
9 times out of 10, people's favorite coach or favorite teacher is the one that they would say was the hardest on them. But it was also the one that no matter what was going on, let you know that they cared about you.
Care.
And and people wanted to be held accountable,
Yes.
right? And so that's the thing where we have to let leaders know that you can you can give justice without being a jerk, right? You can hold someone accountable without being a jerk,
Yep.
right? You connect with someone before you criticize,
Yes.
right? These are things where, like, we tell people that, hey, you correct them, criticize, write them up, right? All these things, we don't tell people how you make someone feel careful, right? At the same time. And that's what people need, right? Once again, that's why people gravitate towards people. Like you think about Mike Krzyzewski, Dean Smith, you think about John Thompson, you know, when you think about how Allen Iverson talks about John Thompson, he talks about him like he's his father.
Like a son that loves his father.
Yeah. And you
Absolutely.
know John Thompson didn't play around.
Nope. But he loved it.
but he loved them. There's no reason why people in leadership positions in the office can't think about it in the same way. And I just refuse to believe that it cannot be done. I've seen it done. I've done it myself. Other people have done it. We just have to make sure that everyone is held accountable for it. I'd say all the time, a lot of times we teach management
Yes.
and we expect leadership.
Yes.
We have to start teaching both
Yes.
and holding people accountable for both.
Yes. The
Because so many people are feeling overmanaged and underled.
correct. In the military, there's no block on there that talks about that caring for your people in that manner. Leadership is on there, but it ain't that kind of it's management is what the box should say, but we call it leadership. Some people are leaders, some people are managers, and it flushes out in the wash. And then you don't always get the best leaders at the top. Sometimes you get a really good manager and he or she had good people around them. Um, and it is what it is. But to your point, I think it's important, and it's not just in the military is what I can speak to, what we know, but like life needs this. Hell, law enforcement. Look, Coast Guard is the military as well as it is law enforcement that tie in, because y'all work hand in glove. Y'all make a naval ship a Coast Guard vessel as soon as a Coast Guard sailor walks on there, right? And y'all can, hey, we have the, posse comitatus and all those things, those abilities to change it. And you are in law enforcement, and that's a unique tie that I appreciated as I got a little bit more long in the tooth in my career, learning those things, right? It is a unique balance. You had to, I mean, I call it the best of both worlds, to be honest with you, because you were military and law enforcement at the same time and did things at home taking care of people. When you mentioned Katrina, I graduated college December of 2005 from Southern University, Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Yeah, I wasn't in New Orleans or Slidell or on the North Shore, but my family was. I had 13 people in my one bedroom townhouse. 13 people at one point in my last semester of college from Katrina. I had people leaving from Destrehan, Louisiana. I had people coming from Slidell. And it took them 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 hours to get to my house in Baton Rouge. I was a senior in college, thought I had it all together. And it was a interesting time to
Yeah.
have it was great to have family and friends for a short time, but I had folks for months, at least 2
Yeah.
months of extra roommates. I didn't pay rent for a little while, which was fine because everybody was chipping in, but it was also a challenge. And I just want to say thank you for what you did during that time, just being there, taking care of, you know, people in the city. I had buddies of mine that were Army National Guard and were sent to do security at the Superdome. And hearing the stories that they're telling, they sent them out there to provide security at the Superdome with their rifles in uniform, without ammunition, and real TTPs of how to handle the crowd control. And then when things got bad and the power went out and a hole was in the roof of the Superdome, what were they supposed to do? Hand out food and water? What are you supposed to do when the toilets stop flushing in that large building?
Yeah.
I talked to a buddy of mine that worked at one of the big hotels downtown New Orleans. And he said before that he was there during the storm, windows blown out in half the hotel. And he said he got in his car, took it out of the parking garage, made it out of the city before the levees broke, and made it to Baton Rouge. And he was like, looking on the news a couple days later, I see my the hotel I was working in, like, waist deep water. after the levees broke. Few hours after the storm, he was like, "I made it out fine, no issue." I was like, "Man, that's wild." I worked at Radio Shack, throwback, in college, looking at the first responders coming, buying batteries and flashlights and loading up, just buying out all the stuff that they could get to get down to New Orleans. And they were just sitting on, I-10, because I worked off of the Radio Shack off of Blue Bonnet right by the Mall of Louisiana. They were sitting off of I-10 waiting to go into the city, to be allowed to go into the city to do first responder duties. And it was a unique experience. So, we got different tie-ins, and how things come full circle in this life is amazing, man. I appreciate it. I appreciate it.
No, it was definitely one of the things that I'm always be thankful that I was able to take part. To be part of an organization, and we just went. I mean, that's one of the wonderful things about the Coast Guard. We didn't ask. There was people in need, and we just went. And there was a lot of people that took part. And like I said, I'm just very, very thankful that I was able to be just a member of the team, doing what we are trained to do, doing the king's business, as I always say. But I just think that um, the mission that during that time was saving people from Hurricane Katrina, from a storm, right? Um, and I think that a lot of times, like, there are people that are focused, like that's the mission. And as leaders, we gotta understand that that is always part of our mission. Our mission doesn't matter where we are. And a lot of times, a lot of I got a military background. So a lot of my stories and examples, personal ones, are military examples, but really they're life situations that just happen to take place in a military environment, right? But these things are relevant anyway, because there are people out there that are facing challenges, going through divorces, um, want to talk to the help through their career decisions, right? There are people out there that need leaders to actually help them out with work-life balance.
Yeah.
Let them know that, yes, show up to that recital. You know, don't miss that trip for the Boy Scouts. You know, um, that priority of being your little league coach for your son's team. Hey, that's important to you as a father. That's important to me as your supervisor. We're going to do these things together because I need you to be the best father you can be, not just the best market analyst, the best financial manager, the best, you know, IT specialist, right? And when leaders show that sort of genuine care, as you mentioned before, for their people, then what that individual is now going to do in return is going to be so far and beyond what you would ever get just by trying to force them, right, through some sort of, stick and carry, right, type sort of message. Um, and so I just think that, this leadership style has validity everywhere, every organization, every situation. And I really just think that this is the way people should interact with people.
Yeah.
And that's a broader sense of the mission is I just want people to care about people more, right? You hear about a factory closing down, I feel for those people. I don't know them, but I know that that's somebody that's going through a tough time. I feel for them.
Absolutely.
Right? I'm not about to get into what factory was and this and that, what job were they doing. That's some people that's trying to make ends meet and now they can't. I feel for them,
It's the human
right?
experience, and
The
people
human
just trying to
experience.
figure it out. We're all I what was funny to me, I to your point, just that quick snippet, I will say one thing that I think is so, um, telling. When I was a kid, I looked up to the adults, and I thought they had it figured out. Now I'm the adult, and I'm like, "Damn, I didn't have it figured out, or I don't. I'm doing well, I'm making moves, I'm good." But giving grace, like you said earlier, to your younger self and older self and future self, we are all just trying to figure it out. You never know
Yeah.
what somebody's going through, and a smile and a kind word can never hurt. It just putting out good is helpful because we got enough bad crap going on in the world. And,
Yeah.
to your point, man, I mean, there's so much to it, so much there that we
Yeah.
could talk for hours about this, literally.
Yeah. It's amazing to me how many times I will be walking at the job and people will literally walk right by you and not even look in your direction, not even acknowledge that you exist, right? And I'm just like, and it's interesting because I'm always like, good morning, how you doing? Have a good day, you know. And there be times where people like it's almost like I surprise them, right? Like, oh, hey, how you doing? But it's just like we got to get to the point that once again, this is how people should be treating people,
Yes,
right? Like, I see you, you know, I don't need to know everything about you. All I need to know is that you're here and it's good to see you.
yes,
How you doing?
yes,
Hey, have a good day.
yes.
Good good afternoon. Like, just acknowledge people. Um, as you mentioned, it can go a long way.
Yeah, yeah. It it's very impactful. Um, I think I think this is a good point to pause, stop, ponder. Is there anything that you want to say before we get up out of here? Um, in general, like any standouts, anything that you think is important that we might have missed that you just want to give a comment towards or a thought on or anything like that. Because I mean, there's a lot we hit between just the different threads in life, how you got to where you are. You know what I mean? Like that's not a small feat. Dad was in the military, exposed you to the Coast Guard Academy. Like, go experience this, make a decision. I'm not telling you that's where you got to go, but the bar is high and you will go to college, period.
Mm.
But I'm not going to tell you where you have to go. Get in the Coast Guard Academy. Hey, you need to go ahead and take this test. Why? What I'm gonna take? I don't want to fly nothing. What? Take the test. Somebody took that genuine interest. Even though it might not have been intrusive leadership, it was a form of, I know you. You seem like a good kid. Open the door for yourself. Have the door open. Take the opportunity. Go take you took it. You're like, you know what? Let me test this out. And then just running down that road, that thread, like you were the aide to the commandant of the Coast Guard. Like, that is a big deal. That is a really cool job. There are so many things that you have done, that so many stories that you could probably tell in your time in service all the way through all the different job experiences. And it's just so much there. And then you put so much care into this book. I just, I, I am,
Mm.
I'm appreciative of it. And it's something that was needed.
Well, I'll I'll touch on one more thing, because you went back to that story, and I think this is an element that I think is pivotal. That officer that took a genuine interest in me as a cadet to have a conversation about aviation, to just say, "This is something you can do," right? That was a white male.
Mm,
Now why is that important? It's because that for him, it didn't matter what I looked like. He just saw someone that he wanted to invest in that had potential, and he wanted to tap into it. It was intrusive leadership before I even knew that it was intrusive leadership, right?
absolutely.
But this is how leadership should be done. And when you are that intentional about being that sort of leader for everyone, whether they are Black, Asian, Hispanic, women, um, transgender, whatever their sexual orientation is, and white males. You have to be intentional about being the best leader for everyone. And so when we think about a lot about what's going on surrounding the idea of diversity, equity, and inclusion, I've always said that intrusive leadership is really how it should have been done to create an inclusive environment because it is about leaders being very intentional about connecting with every single person that they're in charge of leading. And if leaders do that, how could that not create an inclusive environment? And so I have to be intentional in how I connect with women.
Mm,
I have to be intentional in how I connect with minorities.
mhm.
But I also have to be intentional in how I connect with white males because white males are facing challenges too. White males need mentorship. White males are facing divorce. White males are committing suicide.
Mm,
And so, as a leader, someone that has done a lot of work championing DE&I initiatives, I also have to include every single person in that diversity spectrum and not leave anyone out. And I think that that has been an element that there was good intentions, but poor execution.
absolutely.
And so if you're only talking about recruiting,
Mm,
when you're only talking about recruiting minorities or women, if you don't fit into that bucket, what are you to think?
I'm the
If
total
you're
way.
only talking about retention and the only quality talent that you are saying that you are trying to make sure that you retain is women and minorities, what if you don't fit into those two groups?
I am not valued at that point. Is that that's exactly the feeling or the thought. Uh, I I appreciate you touching on the DE&I and the conversations you had on it in the book. I won't do it justice, but what I will say is that like DE&I missed a piece from the perspective it didn't include everybody. I remember the conversations I would have with Marine buddies of mine who were on recruiting duty. And they were like, I need a Native American female pilot. And it's like, that's how we do recruiting. We can't just get the best. And it's not about not saying that they're not the best qualified, but that's what I need to go look for. And I understand the why we need people and we need, at that time, we had targeted numbers for certain things. I need a Black lawyer female for this number. And I we understand the why behind why it was done. Because hey, you need numbers to throw at the problem to get the people to matriculate to certain grades, ranks, and places, but it wasn't done. It was executed poorly, to your point. Like, if you want more diversity, then you have to advertise to more people in the places that they are, because not everyone's coming knocking on your door.
Right.
These services, and I think the people who were left out, who are a bulk of our military, were left out because it was like, well, I could just open the door and I got 10 people that'll walk in and I can sign them up tomorrow. But to get that, Indian female JAG contract, I got to go hunt her down. I got to go find this person that's going to be my aviator that is of Pacific Islander descent, to get them in the cockpit, to even get them the opportunity, because we don't even recruit in their neighborhoods. We don't even show those ads on the TV programs that they watch to get
Yeah.
these folks in there. And then it's like, why would you even join the military? These are conversations. I mean, hell, as a black man formerly in the military, retired from the Marine Corps, I didn't see recruiters. I saw recruiters at my high school, but I didn't see them at other opportunities, events, and locations. And it was just very interesting, the dynamics. It's difficult.
But let's take that even further. You're in the office and the leader is like, hey, we need demographics at the senior level. So I'm gonna make sure that I mentor the female. I'm gonna make sure that I mentor the minority because we're trying to do this. And what I'm saying with intrusive leadership is you mentor everyone because everyone needs it, but you meet people where you are. So the conversation that I'm going to have with the woman is going to be for the woman. And the conversation that I'm going to have for the minority is going to be for the minority. And I'm going to have the conversation with the majority male for the majority male. I am going to meet them where they are so that I can be the best leader for them. But if you do it for everyone, then you create the selection process based off of merit, then it all is going to shake out. But that's why I say this is the leadership style that creates the critical conversations, it creates the family atmosphere, and it creates a truly inclusive environment because you're doing this for everyone. You're showing this genuine care for everyone. And so if you are only the one person of one group, you still feel like you're around people that care about you.
Absolutely.
And if you're one of the 10 people that look like you, but guess what? You know that you're cared for and your personal issues matter to the people that are leading you. Right? And now we're learning from each other. We're sharing like all those things. This is like, once again, a lot of times we talk about we want the result. We want an inclusive environment. We want an environment where everyone is willing to share their thoughts. We want people to be courageous enough to innovate. All of these things, but we don't necessarily talk about what leadership style produces that. That is what we have to start talking about. And it's just my opinion that intrusive leadership is what does that because it provides a personalized type of element. The same way someone is going to motivate and inspire you, Rod, is going to be different than how someone is going to truly motivate and inspire me.
Yeah.
And we're two African Americans. So it's not, hey, just treat y'all the same.
Yep.
No, I got to get to know Rod. I got to get to know Marcus, right? This is Rod's value set, right? This is Marcus' value set. So now I take all that in, and guess what? When I sit down and I talk to Rod, I'm talking to Rod and only Rod. And this is how I'm talking to you. And when I sit down and I talk to Marcus, this is how I'm talking to Marcus. When I sit down and I talk to Michelle or Sarah or Tom, Jeff, I'm holding y'all to the same standard, but I know y'all individually and providing you the leadership style you need so that you can be your best. And if everybody was working in that type of environment, who would feel like they're not included?
Absolutely. It's the I show up to the doctor with a broken leg. They're gonna treat my broken leg at the individual level, not they're gonna look at Marcus's leg and say, "You're fine." No, they gotta look at me as the individual and take care of me. It's like when I go to Burger King, I wanna have it my way.
Yeah,
Like, with this, I don't like pickles and onions. Well, this is how the other guy liked it. I'm spending my time, effort, energy, and money here, you know?
yeah.
It's an investment.
Hey, let's get real with it. There were some people that wanted to talk about the George Floyd situation. There were some that did. So, and we're talking about people that are in the African American community.
Absolutely.
So, what do? You talk to the people that want to talk about it, and those that don't want to talk about it, you don't talk to them about it.
Give them the opportunity and option. It's like I just finished this book for school called Nudge. Nudges are those things that push you into doing something, but it's an easy opt out. So it's like, hey, doors open, come in. You don't have to, but the door is open. The opportunity is there. And that's kind of what that intrusive leadership model that you're using. Hey, listen, my door is open and I'm going to approach you and talk to you and give you the opportunity. You don't have to take it, take my offer or the opportunity because this is an opt-in version. I'm still going to ask. And every time I ask is an opportunity to opt in. Or when you need it, you can always come and opt in. So it's a very I just I'm a believer, as they say. You know, I'm a believer in intrusive leadership, the way you've described it, the way you've laid it out, the way you articulated it. I uh I think you're onto something. I think you've done something great with what you put on paper. Um, and I appreciate it. I mean, you went to version or the second edition, what, a year after you wrote the first one, which was, you even commented on it. Hey, it's not that I did it wrong, but I added some more depth and character and flavor to it. It was good, but it could be better. And that's what you put in there. And I appreciate you, being from the South, as them old folks say, you put your foot in it. So, I love it, man. I love what you've done with it. I'm appreciative of you giving me your time to be on here, talking with me. I look forward to having you on again. I know we'll have more to discuss, more depth to get into in a book, future endeavors you're doing, with the Leadership Institute, and all the things that you're doing and the projects that you've got going. I'll say as a friend, I'm proud of the effort, energy, and things you were putting in because it's a piece of yourself in a book. It wasn't written just to make money. It was literally written to make a difference. You know what I mean? I even love the fact that the proceeds and donation aspect you have to go to the Coast Guard Academy. I caught that on the back end. I was like, hey man, you're giving back. Giving
Yeah.
back is everything. And that's something that, it's genuine. It's not contrived. You didn't make this up. You didn't do it for self-aggrandizement. You did it for the people that have done it for you. You did it for the people that you saw do it for others. You did it for the people that you saw that just had needs that needed to be met, and you cared. And that's the biggest thing. I wrote two things down, trusting leadership. That trust in your leadership as a leader is everything. I gotta trust you to be able to share that with you. And I'm not saying trust you to be like, hey, you know what I did this weekend? Went and
Right.
did something. But they can at least trust you and say, hey, I did something this weekend. And if you hear about it, or they tell their leadership, that person that they trust, they can have the conversation. Hey, I messed up. whatever that looks like. It's gonna come up. It's gonna be a big deal. I'm gonna let you know in advance. I know I gotta take my, slap on the hand, take the L, whatever it is. But that trust, you built that trust, you built the opportunity and environment for trust. Because, there's so many places that you go that I trust no one. And I'm gonna keep my cards to myself because I have to protect my interest versus
Yeah.
the environment where you talk about in the book, just building that trusting environment, building that environment where you can, share that stuff and get out there. Um, Look, I don't want to cut us off, but I'm gonna cut us off because of the timing. We're almost at 2 hours. I appreciate you. I appreciate the time you invested. I appreciate the effort. If there's any last comments you want to make before we shut it down and get up out of here, I'll leave it to you.
Just one thing, because you did touch upon it, the Intrusive Leadership Fund. And so always trying to give back, always trying to support the military. Very fortunate that my alma mater, the Coast Guard Academy Alumni Association, set up this Intrusive Leadership Fund. Those that donate to the fund, the proceeds go to providing books to military members when I visit their unit and speak on intrusive leadership. And so if you go to the CanadyLeadershipGroup.com, there's a tab on there that says support our troops. Click on that. It'll give you some more information, and then you can donate straight to the Alumni Association. It doesn't come to me. It doesn't come to the Kennedy Leadership Group. It goes to the Alumni Association to purchase books for military members. So thank you for this opportunity. Like you said, we could keep going, but I would love to be back if you think I could add value on a topic. But thank you so much, Rob, for what you're doing. This platform, and wish you nothing but blessings and joy.
Hey, I appreciate you. For my subscribers, for those that watch the show, that listen to the podcast, audio, video, whatever that is, I appreciate you. The links to everything we've been talking about, where to buy the book, the Kennedy Leadership Group, the website, those things will be posted in the show notes, and you will be able to, get there, find the things, find what you're looking for to get a little bit more information about uh, our guest and what he does. Marcus, again, thank you for your time, man. I know time is everything. That's one of those resources that we can't get back. I appreciate you. I love you. Thank you for what you give and what you do. I'm gonna go ahead and shut her down.
Free audio post-production by alphonic.com.